only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your
grow wealth?
The only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to fish up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and
only way to move is up.
Matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up. The way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up. The way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up. The way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up. The way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up. The way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Meristem, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up. The way to go, the top. You've come
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Medistan, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Medistan, let's grow wealth for you.
The only way to move is up, the way to go, the top. You've come this far.
Your story doesn't have to end with you. As a matter of fact, it can continue into the next generation and the generation after that. After all, you've worked hard to get to where you are. Why should your wealth end with you? Let your story continue.
Medistan, let's grow wealth for you.
And speak now.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to our session for today. My name is Tolulope Babatunde, and I'll serve as your moderator for today's webinar. In honor of Children's Day month this May, we'll be talking about wealth management, the journey to protecting your legacy and family's future. The webinar will be focused on enough information providing us to plan for you and your family's financial future, because proper planning is the recipe for a stable financial future for any family. When you understand how to manage and distribute your wealth, you ensure that your family's future is secure. After this session, I believe each and every one of us, especially parents, will take time to reflect on what we have, how to ensure it grows in value, how you will protect it, and how you will share it with those you love even after you're gone. So what is wealth management? What is legacy? How will you protect it and ensure your family's future is secured and protected? I have here with me Pelumi Onijala, a wealth advisor with Meristem Wealth Management Limited, and Dolapo Olufade, a trust advisor with Meristem Trustees Limited, who will serve as panelists for today. I will be addressing our questions, providing information and solution for tackling the uncertainties that comes navigating the intricacies of wealth management. So hello, Pelumi, good morning. How are you? Right. Hello, Dolapo, how are you?
Thank you, Lord. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, welcome, Pelumi. So, with our topic, wealth management, Pelumi, can you tell us what is wealth management? What are the benefits of having proper wealth management?
Thank you to our online viewers for joining this morning. So I would like to start by stating what wealth is. So wealth is the overall value of, be it assets or overall value of what an individual possesses. So it could be tangible or intangible. Wealth can also be earned or gifted. So we can have wealth in form of inheritance, we can have wealth in form of business interest, we can have it in form of mutual funds, investments generally. So since we already know what wealth is, wealth management is then a financial service that is offered to be it high net worth individuals, ultra HNIs, and basically HNI clients that have assets that they would like to manage. So for wealth management, when you have a wealth management service in place, this basically takes off the stress of managing your wealth. We have professionals that there are wealth advisors who are in charge of managing wealth for clients. Wealth management also gives you the access to different services. So when you have a wealth management service that's been put in place, you can in return have a retirement planning put in place, because your retirement is also part of your wealth. You can have an estate planning put in place. You can have, so wealth management encompasses managing your wealth as a whole. So to say, just to make it, to keep it short, wealth management is a financial service that helps you manage your wealth.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Pelumi. I just want you to just brush us further on what are the aspects of the 3 stages of wealth management.
Yeah, so when we talk of wealth management, there are different stages. There's the accumulation stage. This is the stage where you're in active service. You have regular income coming in. You can save, you can put something aside. Then we also have the preservation stage. This stage is the stage where you are moving towards retirement. So at this stage, you have to be careful. You have to consolidate your assets. You have to be careful of risk, because you don't want a situation where everything that you've accumulated then goes away at the point of preserving it. So at the point of preservation, this is when you try to multiply your assets. You've accumulated for years. So the preservation stage is the intermediary between when you are still in active service, when you still have an active income, and retirement. Then we also have the transfer stage. So this transfer stage is when you are already in retirement. And then this is when you start thinking of the different transfer tools, like wills, estate. At the transfer stage, you would have retired by then, and then that stage you would have to start thinking of the generations to come. So the transfer stage is basically how you transfer your assets to the next generation.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you, Pelumi. Thank you for actually breaking down wealth management. What is wealth management, and the several stages of wealth management. And based on your response, right, you said it involves 3 stages. That's the accumulation, the preservation, and the transfer stage. So looking at the preservation and transfer stage, I think that speaks towards legacy, basically. And I would like to ask you, Dolapo, what is legacy? As an individual, as a family, as a parent, what legacy and guarantee your family's future? Because looking at what she explained on the aspects of wealth management, the transfer, the preservation stage of the wealth management, that speaks more towards legacy, and how, as a parent, how ways you can actually protect that same legacy and guarantee your family's future. So Dolapo, over to you.
All right. Thank you, Tolulope. And once again, thank you to our esteemed viewers at home for joining us. In answering this question, we have to look at the data. Like they say, in God we trust. Every other person must bring data. The data shows us that in the next 2 decades, that is in 20 years, over $84 trillion in legacy will be transferred to children and their grandchildren. And then when I look at that huge amount of money in form of legacy, $84 trillion, I ask myself, how ready are we in this part of the world, right, to take on this legacy? What are the tools that we've put in place to ensure that we transfer this wealth and this asset to the next generation? And the reality is that we are not ready in this part of the world. And I think that is why we're having this conversation. And what are the facts to show that we are not even ready? When we look at the data from the Securities and Exchange Commission, we've been informed that there are over 188 billion naira worth of unclaimed dividends, right? We've been made to understand that over 500 billion naira are sitting in dormant account that the CBN is planning to move into a unified account at the CBN. PwC released a report some years back where they made us realize that there's something called dead capital, that is real estate and agricultural land that are not in use. And the worth of this is between $300 and $900 billion. that is a whole lot of asset and legacy wasting away. So while we look at the fact that in the next 20 years, right, $84 trillion are poised to be transferred down, right? We are not ready in this part of the world to do that. And so the idea of protecting one's legacy is then very important when we look at the impact that it has, not just on the individual, but also on the economy, right? And so when we talk about legacy, you can look at it from two prisms. One, from a technical sense, where your legacy is like the gift that you give someone. The second sense, which is all encompassing, is that a legacy is everything about you, your wealth, your charitable or philanthropic objective, the things that you are known for. And these are all of the things that we can actually help you plan at Merisem Trustees Limited. So, and that's why when people talk about wealth, wealth is not just material things. Wealth is the totality of the human itself, right?
Wow.
And so
everything I own.
exactly. And so we can help you transfer that. We can help you put a plan around all of those. And this is actually important. I mean, we're having this webinar because of the Children's Day event. And there is a very, very sad statistics that we have added that around 10 million children are out of school in Nigeria. And that is the highest in the world. And when you look at it, you realize that some of these 10 million people, right, the reason why they're out of school is because someone somewhere failed to plan for their education. Someone somewhere thought, okay, I would always be there for these kids, right? But unfortunately, they are not there anymore. And so this is part of the broader conversation that we are meant to be having about protection of legacy, about securing your family future. So as I mentioned, when you think of legacy, do not just think of it as just a gift, you understand, or a piece of land, but think about the totality of yourself, you understand, what you are known for, what you want people to know you for, in addition to some of the material things that you have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dolapo, and thank you to our esteemed audience. Though you can actually drop your questions. There's a Q&A box. You can drop your questions. And I'm even amazed. The first question is already coming in. And I think I'm going to throw this question to Pelumi. Since you spoke about wealth management, you introduced what wealth is, what wealth management is, and the stages of wealth management. So this question goes to you. How do I measure and manage my wealth? Because definitely we all want to be wealthy. We have a lot of people here that, okay, even if I'm not yet wealthy, how can I start measuring and managing my wealth? So, Pelumi, please, I'd just like you to just give us a response to that question.
Okay. First, to measure your wealth, you have to be able to separate your assets from your debt. So when I say assets, your financial or non-financial assets, everything that you own, you subtract it from, say, your credit cards, your loans, your mortgage, and the likes. So when you subtract your debt from your assets, you get your net worth. So everything, you don't just calculate everything you have and say, oh, this is how much I have. Whereas you have some mortgages that you're accessing, you have some loans that you're servicing. So you have to subtract that first so that you know where you stand at the moment. When that has been done, you can manage your wealth by, so wealth management has to do with consistency. You don't just say, oh, I have wealth, I can manage it this way. You have, it has to be a consistent thing. You have to budget, you have to manage your expenses. So there are nice to haves and nice to wants. You have to budget. There's a 50-30-20 rule that you need to follow. So that's 50% for your wants, 50% for your needs, I beg your pardon, 30% for your wants, and the remaining 20% can then go into your investments and savings and the like. So you have to, first of all, know what your expense is, know what you own, you apportion, you budget so that you don't overspend. I mean, there are people who were once rich and all of a sudden, they lost everything. So wealth management has to do, you have to be very consistent when you are trying to manage your wealth. You just don't spend anyhow because you think you have the funds. So in doing this, you should also speak to a professional because most people think, oh, they know it all. You have to speak to a professional. A professional will then guide you, will give you the basis on what to invest in. There are different investments that you can do according to your age, according to the stage that you are at the moment. So you just don't wake up and say, oh, because there are people doing this, you have to do this. So the bandwagon mentality is one of the things that affect people. Just because they see someone doing something, they think they should do it too. So first of all, you have to speak to a professional. So the professional, the wealth advisor, whoever, which of the professionals that you're speaking to is then the one that will guide you, lead you, tell you of the different risk that involves in whatever you want to do. So
thank you very much. Thank you, Pelumi. I've taken a key takeaway. Consistency is key for me to be able to measure and manage my wealth. Then the 50-30-20 rule. For you 50 to the things I actually need, 30 for my wants, and 20 for my savings and investments. So I feel that way I can actually measure and actually manage my wealth appropriately. And lastly, I should definitely speak to a professional. And luckily, you're seated beside me, so I know that any questions and any concerns regarding managing and measuring my wealth, I have a professional right beside me. So back to you, Dolapo. When you're speaking to me about legacy, you said legacy is totality of everything I own. I actually measured, including the clothes I'm wearing and all of that. So I want to ask a question. What are the first basic steps to me protecting this legacy? Because actually, if legacy is a totality of everything I own, including what I'm even wearing, then I should have to actually think of how can I protect that. And at the same way, my family's future, because it's not just going to be about me, because it's like it's something you actually pass on to the next generation. So what are the first basic steps to protecting my legacy and family future?
Okay, thank you for that question. It's actually a very simple answer, but one that so many people overlook. And it is speak to us. Speak to Mercium Trustees Limited. Because when you talk about protecting your legacy, and then we are looking at the different estate planning tools that we want to have for you, it involves you answering some questions, right? The first question is, what exactly do you own, right? You speak with some people and they do not realize that what they have is an asset, you understand? And then you let them realize that, okay, you can actually write a will to cover this, or you can put this in trust. I'll give an example. You have a young creative, right, who has been putting in all of the work, right? But he hasn't hit stardom yet. Mm-hmm. And then he tells you that I don't have anything. Whereas he has an intellectual property, you understand, that you can plan around. And that's why when you look at the legacy of the likes of Prince, the likes of Michael Jackson, their intellectual property forms the core of their estate, you understand, over which they've planned. I know that there was a story of Aretha Franklin that, okay, his estate, they were fighting over who should get out of our intellectual property proceeds. So you look at someone like that, and then they are not sure that, oh, this is actually an asset that I can plan. It is by speaking to an expert that you realize that. You find somebody who is an upwardly mobile young person, has just joined the workforce, you understand, is receiving salary, he has retirement savings. I am talking about estate planning, he tells you, oh, I don't have anything. Whereas his retirement savings, you understand, form part of his asset. It is until they speak to us that is when they realize that, oh, what I thought wasn't an asset is actually an asset. Also, advisory about, okay, how do you even distribute this asset? Because where your assets are located also has its own implication. We look at it, oh, you have XYZ real estate here, you have some in Kwara State, you have some in Lagos, you have some in your state. What are the different rules that we apply to all of these assets? You understand? What is your religious disposition? What is your faith? Are you a Christian? Are you a Muslim? What sort of marriage did you contract? Was it a statutory marriage or you married under custom, right? Who are you giving your assets to, or who are you not giving your assets to? Like, the answers to some of these questions will then inform our decision to say, okay, why not try a will, or why not try a trust, or why not have this estate plan over this particular asset? So when you are thinking about protecting your legacy, the very first thing you need to do, which is very basic and people overlook, is that you speak to Mercium Trustees Limited and we'll guide you through that process. It's a very simple process because what we do is that we take that burden off you, you understand, and then we handhold you through all of that process. And then you can rest assured knowing that you are going to have a solid estate plan that is going to protect your legacy even unto the generations to come. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Dolapo. So over to the audience, we speak to an expert. You speak to an expert. Dolapo is a trust advisor with Meristem Trustees Limited. In the chat box, you actually see their email address in case you're like, oh, you want me to speak to an expert. How accessible are you? How can I reach out to you? There's several trust advisors in-house in Meristem Trustees that will actually advise you on basic steps of protecting your legacy and family future. There's a question in the chat box now, and I'm actually going to allow Pelumi to actually speak on this. She's talking basically on wealth management. She's spoken about the preservation stage, the transfer stage, the preservation when you're close to retirement and all of that. There's a question someone asked, I'm close to retirement. What investment options can I invest in? So Pelumi, the person might be 55, might be 60. Well, the average retirement age is 55 to 60. The person might be 55, might be even close to, by actually 60, a year more, or might be 10 years away from retirement. But all of the same, the person is close to retirement. What investment options can he or she invest in?
This person is close to retirement. So this is a very crucial stage. People who are close to retirement are usually in the preservation stage, because accumulation is when you are still in active service. So towards the end, you have preservation and then you have transfer. So I would advise this person to invest in low risk. So you need to know your risk tolerance. When you know your risk tolerance, you can know what you can do, you don't want a situation where you're doing other investments, and at this point, I want to assume that this person has already started. But if you haven't started already, it's not too late to start. You can have a retirement service with us. With Meristem, we offer retirement services to our clients. And when you opt for the retirement service with Meristem, you can have we have professionals that can help you manage your retirement. So, every month you can always set something aside towards your retirement. So first of all, what I'll say is you need to know your risk tolerance, and you also need to speak to a professional. We have seasoned professionals in Meristem that can speak to you after this session. So that we can take it up from there. But first of all, you have to know your risk tolerance. You have to know where you stand at the moment, so that everything that you've accumulated over the years will be managed properly. So the chat box is open. We have people responding to the questions in the chat box. Someone is going to drop their number or email address, or you can just drop yours and we'll speak to you after this session.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pelumi, for shedding light on that question, the investment options you can invest in close to retirement. And I'm sure the person who asked the question and other members of the audience would actually appreciate your feedback on the options you've actually suggested. For Dolapo, while we're talking about basic steps of protecting legacy, you mentioned about estate planning. And I just want you to talk more about estate, because for someone like me, I'm still a novice. I don't know so much about estate planning. I hear about it a lot, but I'm not, you're an expert in that field. So you talk a lot about estate planning. Can you just give me a brief on what is estate planning? What are the estate planning tools? And which of these tools is most efficient? So I just want you to actually explain that to the audience, to those online.
All right, thank you, Tolu. So what is estate planning? To make it simple, you have two words there, estate and planning. Yeah. So I can simply say that estate planning means planning your estate. But again, I haven't answered the question.
Yes,
because the most important aspect of it is estate, right? So if I say that estate planning is planning your estate, you then need to ask me, what is my estate? So an estate simply means what you have. So estate planning simply means planning for what you have. You understand? Against when you no longer be here, or when you are incapacitated, or when you are old and frail and you can't walk anymore. That is what estate planning means. Planning for what you want. And in my previous contribution, I mentioned that people own a lot that they do not realize. You understand? They only think of the common asset that we know of, maybe your automobile, maybe your cash in the bank, and your few investment here and there, right? But it's more than that. Your retirement savings, right?
Yes.
The insurance policy that you've taken up, If you're a creative, maybe you're a writer or a musician or whatever it is, your intellectual property forms part of your asset. So it's about understanding that you have this estate, you understand, and then you are putting in place a plan around them. And so how do you then plan for them? What are the tools that you can use? The most common of them all is what you call the wills, you understand? We're all familiar with what a will is. So a will is a document that contains your instructions. That's how simple it is. You are drafted a document, it contains your instructions, instructions touching your asset, instruction touching who should execute, that is who should carry out your instruction about if you have infant children, who do you appoint as guardian, instruction even about you appointing someone to manage those assets. So people always think that, okay, when they write a will, it's only about, I give my car to Pelumi, I give my house at 28 Gerard Road to XYZ person. No. So the instructions are varied. So that is a document called the will. And then you also have what is called a trust, right? And for a trust, while you are still alive, you transfer your asset to a trustee. In this case, let's use Meristem Trustees Limited, right? So let's say you, Tolu, you transfer your asset to Meristem Trustees Limited with instructions on how to manage those assets. You have simply created a trust. And when you create that trust right now that you are alive, we call it a living trust, right? So you can do that. And of course, there are also other tools like testamentary trust, which is more or less a will, but you are, so rather than you give your asset directly to your beneficiaries, in that will, you are then transferring it to a trustee. And you are saying, okay, Mr. Trustee, help me hold and manage this asset. And people do that for a wide array of reasons. So you may have someone whose children or beneficiaries are not in the country, right? They know that if they give them 28 Gerard Road, they are not going to be here to manage those assets. You understand? You know that if you leave your equities with them, they are not going to be here to follow up, collect dividends and all of that. So you may then say that, okay, I'm going to transfer this asset in the will to Meristem Trustees Limited to manage them for these beneficiaries, to my beneficiaries who are unavailable. That way you have created what is called the testamentary trust. You can also give a gift while you're alive. You can have what is called the power of attorney. You can do nominated fund. I mean, we have all sorts of tools, you understand, that you can use. And that is why I said the very first step to protecting your legacy is speak to us. We know what you want. And so the last question is, what is the most efficient of all of these tools? Truth of the matter is, I can't tell you that this is the most efficient because it's all dependent on your circumstances. It's always about context. So for someone who is just starting out as maybe a young graduate who's just starting out at work, I'm not going to tell the person to set up a trust. You know, we have a product called Simple Will. Maybe I'll tell this person, okay, do a simple will. For someone who has a very small family, maybe a wife, 2 children or a child, a house, maybe an account, I can tell you, okay, do a comprehensive will. For someone who has a complex family structure, maybe who wants to do charity, who has some other complex estate planning objectives, I can tell you, okay, go and do a living trust. So the efficiency of an estate planning tool is dependent on the person who wants to use it. So an estate planning tool is not in and of itself efficient. So like I said, the efficiency is dependent on who wants to use it. Why do you want to set this up? And again, I'll go back to my answer to your first question or your second question about how do I protect my legacy? Speak to us. We'll be the one to tell you that, okay, based on our review, you understand, we think you should do a will. We think you should do a trust. We think you should do a combination of a will and a trust. We think you should have this as a planning tool or, I mean, it's all dependent on context and speak to us. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Dolapo. You actually broke down what estate planning, the estate planning tools. And like you said, you cannot tell us which tool is the most efficient. And you said something, speak to an expert. I sit here, giving me just a brief nuggets of this. I'm like overwhelmed. The most common one is always a will. I always hear about will. But I'm now hearing something called testamentary trust. No, I'm like, this is, there's so much to actually learn and all of that. So back to Pelumi, you mentioned that earlier on that wealth management, you actually need to speak to an expert, to an advisor. So I'm a novice. I'm someone who wants to, I'm an aspiring HNI, ultra HNI, and I want to understand, what do I stand to gain if I opt for a wealth management service with your firm? You work with Meristem Wealth Management Limited. So if I'm actually opting for a wealth management service with your organization, what do I stand to gain from opting for that service. So I just want to know the benefits. You said earlier on that I shouldn't just follow the bandwagon, that if I meet a wealth advisor, you actually tell me and advise me better. So what do I stand to gain?
First of all, when you have a wealth management service put in place with our firm, you have different options to have different services. So you have options for different services. You can have a retirement plan put in place for you. You can have estate plan put in place for you. And also, as Ibi Dolapo stated earlier on, our sister subsidiary, Merisem Trustee, they have a nominated fund, which is offered to clients of Wealth Management Limited, and it's free. So that's one of the things that you stand to gain. Just put your wealth management service in place with us, and you, in return, have a nominated fund, which is totally free. So you can even, when you have a nominated fund, you don't necessarily have to do a will, because you already know who the funds is going to. You know who you want to give the funds to. One other reason is because we have professionals. So we have professionals managing your funds. You can just have a wealth management put in place, and we will manage it for you. So we are we are indirectly taking the stress off you. We can let you know what we are doing on your accounts. It's not as if you won't be aware, but we manage it on your behalf. We take there's transparency. We take the stress off you. And as opposed to when you are managing it by yourself, you might not be aware of some particular risk. So when we are managing it, we try as much as possible to avoid risk. So your capital is guaranteed, everything. Just be rest assured that your investment with us, your portfolio with us is going to multiply. So there are lots of things that you stand to gain.
Wow, thank you very much. Thank you, Pelumi. Thank you. So I can actually see past some of the benefits, and I'm sure if we reach out to you or to your members of your team individually, you would actually shed more light on that. And thank you so much for our audience. It's been very engaging and insightful. We still have just a few more questions before we call it a day. And back to you, Dolapo. While we're speaking on estate planning tools, the most common one I'm aware of is actually a will. I've actually known about the will since when I was in 2010. But you're saying something about trust. You mentioned something called living trust and all that. I'm wondering, okay, I'm not yet, maybe I'm not close to, I'm just looking at trying to understand, and I want you to actually shed more light on that. For instance, now I'm not close to retirement. I'm not yet in my 40s. I'm not 50 or 60. And I'm thinking that, okay, is it advisable to even set up a trust now? And if I set up that trust now, will the funds I leave in that trust, or my investments or my assets that are all in that trust, will it just be like that? And in years after, when I've now retired, what will be the value of those trusts? But Pelumi had earlier spoken about wealth management, where she spoke about retirement planning, the preservation and transfer stage, where she said they would actually help you to grow your wealth or take note of what is happening in the economy and everything. But this time around, if I'm setting up a trust, I'm thinking of, will I just leave my trust like that and it won't yield interest? So if I create a trust, will it yield interest? And can that estate plan that you're covering for me, can it cover assets I have in foreign countries? Because we're not just here only not in Nigeria. We have people in the audience that's joining from online. Now with this old Japa syndrome that everybody's leaving the country, we're having a lot of Nigerians having assets in foreign countries. You're holding more assets in foreign country compared to like 10, 20, 30 years ago. So if I'm setting up a trust, aside it yielding interest, can that estate plan, where you speak about estate planning tools, can it cover assets that I have held in foreign countries?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. I believe, yes, you should set up a trust now. Like we say, the best time to plant a tree is now, right? So, yes, set up your trust. And I think I explained what a trust is, but let me just do a bit of a recap. So setting up a trust is as simple as transferring your asset to Merisem Trustees Limited with instructions on how to manage this asset for you. And when you talk about trust, which is an estate planning tool, you should bear it in mind that it still feeds into the overall wealth management principle, right? Pelumi already told us that there are 3 stages to wealth management: wealth creation, or wealth accumulation, wealth preservation, and wealth transfer. So while your trust is focused on the wealth transfer stage. It's also part of your wealth management journey. And so when you put your asset on that trust, value will come on those assets. You understand? There'll be value accretion. You are going to get interest depending on the kind of asset that you put in trust. And I want people to also remember that Meristem Trusts Limited is also part of the Meristem group, right? So we are sister companies to Meristem Wealth Management Limited, where you have seasoned wealth advisors. And so if you give us your asset, for example, let's say your near cash asset, we know that once we give it to them, they know what to do, you understand, about those assets. If you have real estate, we have a real estate team, right, that can help you manage the real estate. If you have stock, we have a stockbroking firm in-house that can help you with all of that. Think of whatever asset that you have, right? So your assets are not just going to remain as they have when you give them to us. You are actually going to get value for those assets. But again, also the kind of value you get will also be dependent on the conversation that we have with you because of the flexibility of a trust arrangement. We can sit down with you and say, okay, how do you want us to invest this asset? Do you want us to invest it in high-risk instrument that will give you more, or you want us to invest in low-risk instrument depending on where you are? You know, so all of these conversations will also guide the instruction we are going to give to our wealth management subsidiary. And if you do not even give us any instructions at all, we have guidelines on how to invest your asset such that value will come on those assets. So yes, you have nothing to worry about if you put your asset into trust. They will definitely increase in value.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you, Dolapo. Thank you for actually explaining and breaking down the trust. I will huge interest. I'm going to take two more questions from the audience, two for Pelumi, two from Dolapo before we call it again. I'm sure it's been very engaging, it's been insightful. All the questions that are being dropped in chat, but someone is actually responding to it in the Q&A live box and also in the chat box. There are members of the Meristem team that are actually responding to some of the questions, but we can't take all questions for the speakers to actually speak to.
I want to remember the last leg of the question about asset outside of the country.
Yes.
We can set up a trust or even generate a plan for assets that you have outside of the country, and we have international partners who can assist with this wherever they are, so that we comply with the local laws over there. So you have nothing to worry about.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks. So you can see, you can just close your eyes when you sign up as a trust client with Meristem Trustees, or as a wealth management client with Meristem Wealth Management. It's they have several subsidiaries that offer similar services that would actually help to grow your wealth in good time, in an atmosphere of transparency. So Pelumi, I'll take this question from one of the audience. Are there any risk involved, even with retirement plan put in place?
Yes. Because I mean, we all live in Nigeria. We know the way the economy is. So you can have a retirement plan already put in place, and then a market risk comes up. So you can have inflation risk, you can have market risk, you can even have health risk, because I mean, we all don't know what the future is going to look like. But in Meristem, when at the point of starting a retirement plan, we have a calculator which is used in determining those things. So say for example, when you retire, your aim is to travel all over the world just to enjoy life. We will put that in place. We already know if you're going to be traveling all over the world, you'll be using different currencies. So at the point of retirement planning, we have a calculator that we use. There's also an IPS that is like a retirement questionnaire that we give to our clients to fill. So this would give us an idea of what to expect. It will give us an idea of what the client's objectives is. So the risks are not, they are not things that cannot be, what's the word now? They are not things that cannot be cured, for the lack of better words. So at the point of having the retirement plan, everything will be put into consideration. So the risk is not anything substantial that can really affect you. That's what I mean by it's not something you can cure. Everything will be considered, so you know what exactly. And in the process, if there's a need for a change, we can always speak to you and let you know that, oh, you need to up how much so retirement plan is basically setting something aside for when you would no longer be in active service. So we can always speak to you after when we see that there are changes going on in the economy, so that we can increase how much we are setting aside.
Thank you very much. Thank you for responding to that question. Aside, considering the risk involved with retirement plan and the fact that you're looking at what is currently happening in the economy, the realities, inflations, and all of that, and the fact that regularly the advisor would speak to the client if there should be any changes in the retirement plan. And that's why I've always brought you the importance of actually speaking to an expert. No man is an island. Nobody knows it all. So that's why you actually need to speak to a trust advisor, a wealth advisor in terms of your wealth management. And it's all about your legacy. What are you protecting it for? What are you looking for at the future? Because we can't live in this life forever. So back to you, Dolapo, before we now take the last question. And thank you so much to our audience. Thank you for tuning in. I can see so many questions. I've answered some, and a lot of several staffs of Meristem Wealth Management, Meristem trustees are actually answering some of the questions that we can't take live, that the speakers cannot actually answer, because if we wanted to do that, we'd spend the whole day here. So Dolapo, this Children's Day is around the corner. It's just in a few days' time. Today it's May 24th, in 3 days' time. So for instance, I'm a parent, I might be a guardian, I might be an aunt, or I'm an uncle, I have nephews, I have nieces, I have children, or I have adopted kids or godchildren, goddaughters, godsons. Okay, Children's Day is just coming up in the next 3 days. What legacy options do I have for those children? And secondly, aside those legacy options, how do I protect it? Since now, almost every child that is planning to jump, every child that is already in secondary school now in Nigeria, if they finish their university education here, they're all thinking of that jackpot, the jackpot syndrome. So some people are like, okay, if the child is planning to jackpot, why should I actually plan on leaving anything for them here? So it's a 2-in-1 question. So I just want you to actually respond, to give us some feedback on that, please.
All right, thank you. So at Meristem Trustees, we have an education trust that you can set up for your children, right? And it's actually very easy to set up and also very, very affordable, right? You know, gone are those days where when you hear trust fund babies, you think of the kids of ultra wealthy people, right? But at Meristem Trustees Limited, we've democratized what it means to be a trust fund baby, right? With a little, you can have an education trust, right, set up for your children. So yes, that you can do, and like I mentioned, it is very, very affordable, and you can set it up to cover for the entirety of the education. Now, if you don't want something as specific as an education trust, you can decide to set up even a trust and make their education a part of the reason why you set it up. You know, in the trust deed, that's the document we are going to have, that we're going to draft between both of us. You can put it there that, okay, one of the reasons why you have set up this trust is to cater for the education of XYZ person to a certain level. You can do that. And to your question about people leaving the country for better opportunities outside there and all, that's why we also advise people. You know, when we talk to people, right, people say, my family is not going to quarrel over my estate. Well, maybe I agree that I'm not going to quarrel over it. Some will tell you that, oh, I've given them the best education. I have given them all that they will need, so they don't even care about this asset. Well, maybe I agree. But the fact is, one major issue you raise is the fact that people leave their family, their friends, their kids and kin behind, and they go out there. And then your parents have all of this that they worked for, and they are here. I remember when I started, I said, the data shows us that from PwC that between 300 and 100 billion dollars of dead real estate, or what they call dead capital, right? That is this real estate that nobody's attending to. You cannot commercialize them. I mentioned the figure about monies in dormant account, 500 billion naira, unclaimed dividends going to 177 billion naira, right? I am sure that people who had this asset, they have beneficiaries, children, loved ones who are outside the country. So if you know that your kids are going to leave this country, or they are planning to leave this country, or maybe you're not even sure, why not set up a trust? To set up a trust, and then Meristem trustees manage those assets. Wherever they are, we can distribute the proceeds to them. Or if you're comfortable with writing a will, you can write a will and give an instruction that this asset should be managed by a trustee for their behalf. You understand? So I also think people should also not totally worry that their kids will be leaving the country, because you have a trusted partner in Meristem that can bring to life your legacy objectives wherever your beneficiaries may be. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. So we can see that besides investment for your kids, Dolapo has actually spoken a lot about it. So there are other ways with signing up for a trust. It can actually help to secure their future should an unforeseen event happen. It can also help them even if they've left the country, as long as a trust is put in place. And one of the things we all look at as if you're a parent or a guardian or you have a ward under you, you always look at, okay, I'm working hard for them, not just only for myself. So I'll be taking the last two questions before we call it a day. And I'm sure it's been very engaging. For me, it's been very educative. It's been insightful. I've actually learned so much from, even as a moderator. So now I'm sure a lot of our audience, and I can see it from the responses I'm getting in the chat box, the questions and the ones that we're ensuring that we are responding to all those questions. So I'll take this last question from someone on the audience. The person is asking, I just got my first job, because just to follow up on what you spoke about the retirement planning and all of that, do I need to start a retirement planning now? And how much do I need to retire? So Pelumi, can you just speak to that for us?
Yes, you need to start your retirement now. As soon as you start earning an income.
So I don't need to wait till I'm 50 or 55, senior management, like that.
The earlier, the better. I mean, it's even going to reduce the stress pending when you are close to retirement. So when you start now, you'd be able to plan everything appropriately and you won't be putting too much pressure on yourself. So the best time is to start now. I spoke earlier on about the 50-30-20 rule. Try as much as possible to always set something aside. And then you can speak to a professional who will then take you through the process of planning your retirement. I didn't get the second part of the question.
How much do I need to retire?
Okay, there's no specific amount because it's not, we are different humans. I might require 1 million, another might require 1 billion. So it depends on the individual. There are different things that are meant to be put into consideration. Do you have dependents? Do you have kids yet? How old are you? The age matters a lot. Your health also matters. So there are different things that put into consideration to determine the exact amount you're supposed to put set aside for retirement. Your objective matters also. If you just want to retire and you don't require a lot, there are some people who are very elitist. I mean, the higher the objective, the higher you need to set aside. So it depends. There's no specific amount for every individual to set aside. But as Ibi Dolapo has said, I'd also said this earlier on, you can always speak to a professional. You can just walk into our building, speak to anybody, and we'll direct and put you through. So you can start from coming over to speak to someone so that you know how much exactly you need to set aside.
Thank you very much, Pelumi. And to buttress what she said, speaking to someone, the email address has been dropped in the chat box where you can actually reach out to the wealth advisor, a trust advisor, to advise you appropriately. Also, there's a survey link that has also been dropped there. We'll really appreciate if the audience actually feels it during the session or after the session. And back to you, Dolapo, which is going to be our last question that we'll be speaking to. I want to really appreciate everyone for their patience, for actually joining this session and still tuning in up to this time. Dolapo, it's a question. I'm an upwardly mobile young person who is just starting off in life. Is there a need to think about estate planning and legacy preservation? Yes. Do I need to think about it? And upwardly mobile, just starting, like most like you'll be in the 20s and maybe a Gen Z. So you're like wondering, my money should be for me now. Let me still enjoy myself. I'm young. I'm not even married. I'm just starting out. So why should I think about estate planning and legacy? Because when you spoke about estate planning, you mentioned will, you mentioned trust. The notion is will is for those that are planning to die and all of that. So Please, I just want you to actually respond to that question.
It's a very fascinating question. And I can say that it's because of people like this that we curated what is called a simple will, right? Because we look at it, you look at the market, and even globally, conversations around estate planning are centered around old people or middle-aged people. And you do not have this conversation centered around young people, right? And the thing is, everybody needs an estate plan, right? Regardless of age. And so if you are just starting out like this person, we can help you structure a simple will service. You don't need to have real estate to do that, for example. With your cash in bank and your RSA, you can do that. And if you are someone who is investment savvy and you have equities, yes, we can put that. And we're even expanding it to cover those who have savings in this small index, maybe like WealthBuddy and the likes. So yes, you can have an estate plan and you should have an estate plan. And it's for a lot of reasons, right? Life itself is full of uncertainties, right? And we have hardworking young Nigerians who are working hard and they have something that they can call theirs. So it's then important that they put a plan around this, right? And you don't also have to worry about, okay, whether this is expensive or not. Our simple will service is very, very affordable, very, very affordable. So yes, you are covered. Come to Meristem Trustees Limited.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. Good morning once more. We're actually reaching the end of our session after a stimulating discussion on wealth management, protecting your legacy and family future. I've learned so much. From Pelumi, I've learned the 3 stages of wealth management. What is actually wealth? Managing it, the 3 stages, the accumulation, preservation, the transfer stage. Speaking on retirement plan, the benefits I will obtain if I actually, the benefits I'll get if I sign up with a wealth advisor, with a wealth management service with Meristem. With you, Dolapo, you've actually told me what legacy is, how I can protect this legacy, the estate planning tools. The common one is always a will, but you've actually explained what trust is, the several tools, and how you can actually sign up for a trust for yourself as an individual, for your family members, and the fact that, okay, we have this JAPA syndrome that is coming. Are my assets protected also under the trust and all of that? So you've actually explained it. It's been very, it has left us with a lot of ideas, information, visions, and to actually reflect on. It's been very, very stimulating and engaging. And thank you so much to our audience. I would like to call upon Imabong Gasema. She's a wealth advisor with Meristem Wealth Management Limited, to actually give us our closing remarks for today. Imabong, good afternoon, good morning. It's still morning. We just have 5 minutes left to 12 noon.
Good morning, Tolu.
Good morning, Imabong.
Hi, thank you very much for the session. It was indeed a very interactive session. Thank you for moderating. Tolu, thank you to Pelumi and Dolapo for a wonderful session. And biggest thanks goes to everyone that joined us. Thank you for joining us in our webinar. Thank you for taking out time from a busy schedule to join us today. We hope that has truly been a beneficial and value-adding session for you. We know you have a lot of questions that we're not able to answer. We know that due to time, we're not able to answer some of your questions. We would like to encourage you to send an email to trustees@meristemng.com or wealthmanagement@meristemng.com to send your questions in, and we'll be sure to answer you. If you're in Lagos, you can also visit any of our offices at Yaba, 213 Herbert Macaulay Way, or at Ikoyi, 28 Gerard Road, Ikoyi, and we'll be glad to have you. Thank you so much for joining the session. You have a beautiful day.
Okay, thank you very much, Imabong. There's also a survey link in the chat box. We want members of the audience to actually sign up with that link and just fill it. Very, very short. It's less than 30 seconds and you're done. Thank you very much. Thank you, Imabong. Thank you, Pelumi. Thank you, Dolapo. I really, really enjoyed this session. It was very educative. It was informative for me. And I've taken a lot of learning points from today, things I'm actually going to use for the future. And I'll actually implore everyone, the audience too. I know this was a value-adding interactive session for every one of you. So there's an online survey form you can fill. You are actually getting responses from the audience. Some are saying they've already completed it. That you can also reach out to wealth management and trustees. Thank you very much. And I'm sure we've responded to almost all the questions that were asked, the ones we've been taking live. And lastly, the session is being recorded. Yes. You can actually check our YouTube page, Meristem NG, and you can watch it. And you can also still drop questions there. Someone will definitely respond to you. So it's a live session, it's recorded, and it's actually going to be on our, it will be streamed live on our YouTube channel. And you can actually go back and actually revisit it. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Have a great day. Enjoy the rest of the day. And for those that are looking forward to Children's Day on Saturday, I'm sure you've taken something, a gift you can actually bequeath to your goddaughter, godsons, your children, your grandkids, your nephews, your nieces from this session. Thank you very much and have a great day. Thank you so much, Dolapo. Thank you very much, Pelumi. Bye.
The fear of the future and its uncertainties puts a lot of pressure on people. Pressure of safeguarding their assets and caring for their loved ones. What happens to your hard-earned assets in your absence? How do you protect your loved ones from extended family wahala when you're gone? I'm sure you've considered writing a will, but you're reluctant because you think it's a complex process. Well, did you know that in the time it took me to make this coffee, you can write a will? Sounds unbelievable, right? Yet very possible. We believe that nothing should hinder you from leaving a good life behind for those you love most. With Meristem Simple Will, you can write a will that protects your assets and provides for your loved ones from the comfort of your home. All you need is an internet-enabled device. To get started, visit meristemtrustees.com/simple-will. At Meristem Trustees Limited, we are committed to ensuring your legacy lives on. The fear of the future and its uncertainties puts a lot of pressure on people. Pressure of safeguarding their assets and caring for their loved ones. What happens to your hard-earned assets in your absence? How do you protect your loved ones from extended family wahala when you're gone? I'm sure you've considered writing a will, but you're reluctant because you think it's a complex process. Well, did you know that in the time it took me to make this coffee, you can write a will? Sounds unbelievable, right? Yet very possible. We believe that nothing should hinder you from leaving a good life behind for those you love most. With Meristem Simple Will, you can write a will that protects your assets and provides for your loved ones from the comfort of your home. All you need is an internet-enabled device. To get started, visit meristemtrustees.com/simple-will. At Meristem Trustees Limited, we are committed to ensuring your legacy lives on.
From taking their first breath, saying their first words, to taking their first steps, life is a journey. The journey from using a pencil to a pen, from kindergarten to college,
and from chalkboard to boardroom. At Meristem, we can make that journey easy for you with our Meristem Education Trust, which allows you to set up a dedicated trust account for your children's education. With our Meristem Education Trust, you can rest assured knowing that neither death nor incapacitation can hamper your children's education. To get started, kindly call us on 0700 Meristem or send us an email at trustees@meristemng.com. From taking their first breath, saying their first words, to taking their first steps, life is a journey. The journey from using a pencil to a pen, from kindergarten to college, and from chalkboard to boardroom. At Meristem, we can make that journey easy for you with our Meristem Education Trust, which allows you to set up a dedicated trust account for your children's education. With our Meristem Education Trust, you can rest assured knowing that neither death nor incapacitation can hamper your children's education. To get started, kindly call us on 0700 Meristem or send us an email at trustees@meristemng.com.